Discover the latest health tips, expert advice, and inspiring stories. This is the Health Channel Podcast. Your journey to better health starts now.
Whether it's having difficulty completing assignments in class, test-taking anxiety, or even a learning disability, academic challenges have a profound impact on our children. And this impact is not only on the grades, it's also on the social interaction with their friends, the family dynamic at home, and the overall self-esteem of your child. On the next episode of Ask the Doctor, I'm going to highlight some of the warning signs that will tell you that your child is struggling academically. We'll talk about resources that are available, treatment options, and evaluation. I'll answer all of your questions regarding academic difficulties and ADHD on the next episode of Ask the Doctor. Welcome to Ask the Doctor, a show where we encourage you viewers to send in your questions so that I can answer them in real time. I'm Dr. Scarlet Constant. And I'm a pediatrician here in Miami, and I'm here to answer a couple of questions about ADHD and academic difficulties. Here's our first question from the allhealthtv.com. This question's from Pamela. I've always been called hyper by my family and friends, and it's true that I have a lot of energy. But my baby girl, actually, she's 7 years old, has been diagnosed with ADHD, and I'm freaking out. I have a ton of questions. What kinds of medications should she take? Well, Pamela, thank you for your question, and please don't freak out. There's nothing to be concerned about. Your child was diagnosed with ADHD because you or her teacher had a concern about her behavior and perhaps about her academic performance. The diagnosis of ADHD is very important because it's not so much that we want to put a label on your child, but we want to be able to address the actual issue that is occurring. And if we don't know what's going on, we won't be able to solve it. So ADHD, which stands for Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, is a diagnosis in which your child is having difficulties not only paying attention in class or concentrating on and completing complex tasks, which is the inattentive form, they're also hyperactive. So meaning behaviorally, maybe she pushes boundaries a little bit and is unable to really sit for a long period of time and actually follow directions and concentrate for extended periods of time, which her peers may be able to achieve. There's nothing wrong with that, but of course, you can imagine in the academic environment that poses some challenges to actually learning, and it also may, in some cases, cause disruption in the class. So the ADHD diagnosis, I'm assuming either your pediatrician or neurologist gave her that diagnosis. There are many different types of treatment. You don't have to go to medication right away. We can talk, depending on a component that is more prevalent in your child, whether it's the hyperactivity component or the inattentive component, we can address those concerns. For example, if she tends to be inattentive, but is very well behaved and follows instructions in class and is pretty quiet, you can actually work on different learning skills and study skills to help her concentrate and understand what she's reading and what she's learning. A lot of times the inattentive component there's a difficulty with comprehension. So you could actually seek tutoring, whether it's in the school or privately, and have someone help her almost teach her a different way to learn. Not everybody learns the same way. So she'll have to learn how to learn the way that works for her. And other options could be medication if she's a little more hyperactive than usual, or maybe she's having difficulties even though she is able to comprehend, but physically and behaviorally, she just can't stay still. Medications are an option, but this is something that you should absolutely discuss with your pediatrician. And there are many options, and you don't always have to go straight to medication. I hope that this helps calm you down a little bit. Let's see, we have another question coming in. This question is from Carson. Hi, Dr. Constant. My son has ADHD and takes stimulants for it. Can you explain how they work? I'm concerned about what this means for his future. Hi, Carson. Well, stimulants basically block the reabsorption of dopamine in the brain. So what this means is a stimulant acts almost as an amphetamine in the brain. It actually helps the child focus, and basically I try to explain to parents, filter out all of the noise around them. So they're able to really zone in on one task and focus on that and filter out all the noise, the distraction, the movement all around them. And this helps because clearly it was determined that your child is having a difficult time actually concentrating on the task at hand and concentrating long enough in order to complete work or to comprehend what he's reading. So the stimulant will help him with his focusing. And for the future, there are many different options for your son. Some children are able to grow out of the ADHD, not to say that they don't have it anymore, but they're able to manage it a little bit better with growth and emotional maturity. They are able to understand who they are and what works for them, what study habits work. Sometimes with emotional maturity, you also understand that you can't just stand up and walk around the class without asking, and you're able to control your impulsivity a little bit more. So sometimes some kids get off of the medication. On the flip side, there are some adults that really do need the medication in order to still concentrate and read and complete very complicated tasks. And those adults stay on stimulant medications through adolescence and adulthood. So there are many different options. His future is not determined at this very moment. Looks like we have another question coming in from the Facebook page. This question is from Jamie. Hi, Dr. Constant. I was reading an article a few weeks back about learning disabilities, and then I saw today that you're talking about academic difficulties. In the aforementioned article, they mentioned the Vanderbilt screening. What kind of test is it? What does the test entail? And where do you get tested? Do you have to go to Vanderbilt University in Tennessee? I'm asking because I think my daughter might have a learning disability. Well, Jamie, these are all great questions. First of all, the Vanderbilt assessment is a tool that we use in pediatrics to assess for attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD. The Vanderbilt assessment scale does not screen for learning disabilities. So if you are concerned that your child has a learning disability, I strongly suggest that not only you speak to your pediatrician to get some guidance as to where to go to get tested, but you also make sure that you speak to the school. It is important to have open communication with the teacher and the administration because the school sees your child the most and works with them and sees where your child is deficient and in what areas. The public school system is able to evaluate your child for learning disabilities. They are able to offer this type of testing to see where the breakdown is in the learning and in the comprehension, whether it's reading or math or writing. So your school should be able to offer that type of evaluation. You can also escalate it to see a psychologist, which is in the private sector, you would actually do this on your own out of pocket or with insurance, and you would have your child tested by a clinical psychologist for for learning disabilities. And that same psychologist will also evaluate for gifted, will evaluate your child's IQ and any difficulties they might have. Now, the Vanderbilt assessment tool is what we use in the office, and we actually administer it to you. It's a tool that we download, and we give you a questionnaire for the two parents and a questionnaire that one or two or maybe all of the teachers can fill out. It depends on the parents. It's your discretion. And the teachers will fill this questionnaire out to the best of their ability based on what they see objectively. And then you parents will fill it out and submit it to your physician, and we'll review it in order to assess whether or not your child has ADHD or we're concerned that perhaps your child might have ADHD. You do not need to go to Vanderbilt University in Tennessee. You just need to come see your pediatrician. I hope that this helps. We have another question coming in, and this question is from the allhealthtv.com. Hi, Dr. Constant. I have twins, a baby boy and a girl, and they're about getting ready to play in the big leagues. I'm talking about, of course, first grade. I know that it can be kind of a big transition going from kindergarten to first grade. So I want to know what I can do to help create a supportive home environment that promotes academic success. Simone, congratulations on kindergarten graduation. That's a very big monumental moment in the family's home. I think that your kids will be great. I think that the best thing to do to promote a healthy academic environment in the home is really just always have this in place from the beginning, so it doesn't feel forced. I think we always discuss limiting screen time, and it's for a reason. When you limit screen time, you're also encouraging your kids, instead of playing a game or watching TV, to pick up a book, read a book, complete a puzzle. or maybe play a couple of board games that actually are a bit stimulating. There are some math board games and reading board games and even Scrabble for kids. So those are all things that stimulate the mind and get you thinking and just get you working as a team. You don't necessarily have to have school activities at home or writing assignments or promote homework. You just need to create an environment in your home where your child does feel that learning is fun and that they don't want to just come home and immediately turn on the TV or play a game and associate being home with just game time and playing. You want to also engage in other types of activities. So I think that's important. I think also it is important to encourage your children to they're going to, in first grade, they'll start writing and working on their handwriting. So you can, at home, if they want to color in the coloring book or draw a picture for you, or maybe when you're on vacation, I used to do this with my kids. I used to ask them to, at the end of the day, to write a little bit about their day, 4 sentences or 5 sentences about the most favorite thing that they did the whole day and sketch out something that they saw that made them happy. These are things that are fun and interactive. And at the same way, you're promoting learning and you're preparing them for the next level. Okay, we have another question coming in, and that is from Albert. Doctor, can you tell me more about autism spectrum, please? My nephew, who doesn't like the sound of noises and is uncomfortable around strangers, has been diagnosed as mildly autistic. I'm not sure what that means. Okay, Albert. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. It sounds like your nephew is what we say they're on the spectrum. So we don't really use the terms mildly autistic or severely autistic because autism is a spectrum. So basically autism is a deficiency in social interaction. And the severity of this deficiency really reflects the severity of the autism or how high they are on the spectrum. And when you have this type of social deficiency, it is difficult for someone to interact with you, to speak to you, answer questions, make eye contact. And sometimes it's difficult for them to even be in an environment where they're being taught. So it makes them a bit disruptive. So that's on the other end of the spectrum. The low end of the spectrum is maybe just having some difficulties with basic social interaction. They seem like they're not very comfortable around people or they're skittish around strangers. And there is a really great outcome with that. And it doesn't mean that it's going to necessarily affect their academic performance. It really is more of a based on social interaction. And yes, the loud noises tends to be a common characteristic of children on the spectrum where they are hypersensitive to noises and other types of stimuli. And this is all, again, part of more of a social component. But usually they should perform pretty well at school and not have a problem. So I wouldn't worry about him. Okay. Finally, we have another question that's coming in from Facebook, and this is from Ariel. Dr. Constant, I've been told that my child might benefit from an individualized educational plan. Can you tell me what that is and how it could help him? He's 10 years old and has been diagnosed with severe dyslexia. Well, Ariel, it is great that your school is offering an individualized educational plan, also known as an IEP. And that is basically the school's way of creating a plan for him to learn the way that works best for him. Not all children can be on the same curriculum and have the same academic outline, because some children have more difficulties than others, such as your son who has dyslexia. So what the school will do is they will create a classroom environment for him. They'll have probably closer interaction with the teacher. I'm not sure how they're going to accommodate him, whether someone will read out loud to him or allow him more time to read. These are all basically accommodations that they're going to create in order to facilitate your son's learning and reading in school based on his dyslexia diagnosis. So this is an amazing way for the school to really help you and accommodate him and get him to where he needs to be. Next, we have a question from Gustavo. Dr. Constant, my 12-year-old boy is a genius. I'm serious. I think he'll win the Nobel Prize someday. He's a total science computer geek, but he struggles to get good grades in English, and he really hates reading. How can we help him? So this is pretty common, especially at this age where you figure out where your strengths are and we gravitate towards our strengths and then we really want to avoid our weaknesses. And it's common that someone who really enjoys math and science and computers is going to detest English and writing and the humanities. That's pretty common. So what you want to do to help your son, honestly, is encourage him just to, I don't want to say take baby steps, but encourage him to still read and write, but but not so intense as what's expected from him at school. And so when I say this, I know he's 12 and maybe he's a little too old for this, but with the younger kids, sometimes we've been encouraging kids to read graphic novels because they're more like comic books. And so it's a little easier. It's a little more fun. There are more illustrations. And so for your 12-year-old son, that's a perfect resolution. You can teach him about the old school comics. And I know that everybody's into Marvel again. So you can introduce him to the Marvel comics and give those to him. And it's a little more fun and computer science guys love Marvel, so they can read that. And he's reading, but doesn't even realize that he's reading. You have to kind of just give him a different avenue to still enter into that realm of reading and writing and help him with that. And explain to him that, we can't completely ignore one whole component of learning. This is something that we're just going to have to deal with at school. Now, if his grades are affected and he's truly struggling in that respect, then you might want to talk to his teachers and see if this is something of a concern or a warning sign that maybe he has some type of learning disability or reading comprehension problem, dyslexia. Maybe he says that he hates to read or he hates English because it's actually difficult for him. So if he's not doing well or he's reluctant to go to class and the grades are reflecting that, then you might want to meet with his teachers, and then you'll talk about maybe evaluating him and seeing if there is a true problem or if it's just a preference. Okay, so our next question is coming in from the All Health TV app, and that's from Danny. Dr. Constant, my daughter goes to a public school, and recently her teacher suggested she undergo psychoeducational testing. What the heck is that? She's only 8 years old, but she'd had trouble with schoolwork since the first grade. Absolutely. So if your child is 8, this means that she's in second or third grade. And if you've seen consistently for 3 years that she's truly had difficulty with her schoolwork, then it's time for you to get her evaluated. Whether you're evaluating her for a learning disability or evaluating her for attention deficit disorder, you do need to meet with your teachers. And yes, a psychoeducational testing would be amazing. Of course, as I mentioned before, the school can perform an evaluation on your child. She can sit and get tested, and they can see where her areas of concern are, where her weaknesses are, and if further testing is required or if she needs to be seen by a neurologist. But in addition to the testing at school, if you would like to get psychoeducational testing, and as I mentioned, that's with the psychologist, and that is where they actually assess your IQ and they check for all learning disabilities, you can absolutely do that as well. But my suggestion is to first start with an evaluation at school. And at that point, based on the evaluation, the school will create an individualized educational plan for your child. Hi, welcome back to Ask the Doctor, where your questions can be submitted so that I can answer them in real time. We have a question coming in right now. This question is from Sydney. Hi, Dr. Constant. I'm worried about my son. He's in kindergarten and his teacher says he just can't sit still in class. He's an active, happy, healthy little boy, but could have ADHD or need any kind of tests. I don't want to put him on medication if that's not absolutely necessary. Can you tell me more about the warning signs? Okay, well, so Sydney, your son is in kindergarten, meaning he's young. He's 5 years old, maybe 6. And sometimes it's very hard to discern whether or not his quote unquote hyperactivity is true hyperactivity or just him not acclimating yet to being in a very controlled environment. So maybe he is jumping around and wants to play and see his friends and is unruly. Maybe he's just testing the boundaries, or he really just wants to get up and do something. It is hard to tell at this age because they are emotionally immature and they are still learning how to follow instructions and conform to the classroom environment. So I would have a long talk with the teacher and see exactly where the problems are. And if you would like to also discuss it with your pediatrician and just have a really good explanation as to what he's doing, whether he's jumping up and running out of the room, or he's asking a question out of turn, or maybe he's just a little busier than the other kids, but he actually does listen and follow instructions. So I think that that is perfectly normal, but let's evaluate it further with your pediatrician, and don't worry about medications just yet. That's really far down the line. First, we have to see if this is something that's truly affecting his academics and his school performance. We have another question coming in now. Avery. We moved to a new state recently, and both of our kids, 13 and 7, have some learning disabilities. So now they have to acclimate to a new house, a neighborhood, as well as a new school. Dr. Constant, how can we, my husband and I, ensure that our kids don't feel stigmatized by their academic challenges at their new school? Well, the first thing is, when your kids go to the new school, you will meet with the faculty and inform them of their learning difficulties. And hopefully you'll have some type of documentation from their previous position to explain what the disabilities are and how to accommodate them at school with these disabilities. I don't want you to be concerned about being stigmatized at school. It is really a very private process, and there aren't labels put on your children when they enter. This is just something that the school needs to be aware of so that they can better facilitate your child and promote academic growth for your child. You'll never have a label or a chart or this file that follows you forever. It really is just a matter of making sure that the teachers are aware and they can cater to your children. They need the way they need to be catered to in the classroom. Good luck with your move. So here's another question that we have, and this is from Facebook. This is from Caroline. What role can teachers and school counselors play in identifying academic issues in students? That's a great question. Your teachers are the ones that spend most of the time with the children. They're evaluating their writing samples. They're reading their test reports. They understand who the child is, how they behave in class. So your teachers really are the eyes and ears for you regarding academic performance for your children. Counselors are wonderful as well in that they actually see the trend in the grades and the test scores. So they can really provide a lot of insight as to how the type of student your child is. So I think that they play a great role, and they really can just help you at least with the warning signs or the trends that your child is completing. Okay, again, we have another question. They just keep coming in. So here's a question from Laura. What resources or support services are available for families dealing with academic difficulties? Great question, Laura. So this, of course, depends on where you live, on your community, on your school district. But a lot of school districts have wonderful resources, whether it is the IEP that they put in place, tutoring that comes to the school, seclusion classes that will pull your child out and put them in a different environment with reading labs, et cetera. And so in school, I would certainly speak to your school administrator first to find out what the school offers. And then moving forward, there are a lot of private facilities that offer different types of tutoring. There are also schools that are designed for children with specific learning disabilities, and they will facilitate them as a whole in that school. So you can always look into your school district and find out which schools are beneficial for you. So just to recap, I just want you to remember that if your child is diagnosed with ADHD, the treatment is not only going straight to a stimulant medication. There are many options for children with ADHD, and you should definitely discuss it with your pediatrician before you get nervous and think that your child needs to be started on a stimulant. If your child is struggling with schoolwork or just shows that they don't want to go to school, they're reluctant to go to certain classes, you feel like they just really don't like to be there anymore, and their grades are reflecting that, always speak to the teachers first and find out, is there a reason for this? Is there something that is difficult for your child, which is making them dislike school a little bit more? Look for feelings of sadness or maybe having a difficulty with a teacher. It might not be the teacher. It might not be personally to your child. It just might be that there's an academic problem or a learning difficulty in the classroom. So always speak to the teachers. Talk about an evaluation. And if you feel like you're lost and you need guidance, speak to your pediatrician and we'll guide you the right way. I hope that this helps. And as usual, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. Thanks for watching Ask the Doc.
Thank you for listening to the Health Channel podcast. We hope this information has been useful. However, please remember that only your doctor can advise you about what is best for you. Do not start, modify, or suspend treatment based on anything you have heard on this podcast. Please join us again soon.